Priscilla Presley thought she had seen every version of Elvis as a father. But on a quiet night at Graceland in 1976, Elvis sat Lisa Marie down and asked her one simple question about her future. Her answer wasn't loud or cruel, but it shattered him in a way no crowd ever could. If you've ever wondered what Elvis was like when the cameras were off and it was just him and his little girl, stay with this story. This is the side of Elvis people rarely talk about, the father whose biggest fear wasn't losing fame, but losing his daughter's heart. It's late evening at Graceland, October 1976. The tours are paused, and the house feels more like a home than a landmark. Outside the gates, a few fans linger, hoping for a glimpse. Inside, the upstairs hallway is so quiet you can hear the floorboards breathe. Elvis walks that hallway slowly, bare feet brushing the carpet runner, one hand resting on the wall as he passes framed photos of Lisa at different ages. Lisa in braids on a pony. Lisa on an airplane, laughing with headphones too big for her head. Lisa squinting into the Las Vegas sun, hotel marquee glowing behind her name and his. He's just gotten off the phone with a promoter pushing for another Las Vegas Hilton run. Crowd estimates over 18,000 a night. The man on the other end talked about numbers, dates, ticket tiers. But when Elvis hung up, he didn't see a stage. He saw his daughter's face. On a narrow table halfway down the hall, something catches his eye. A folded school report card sits under a glass paperweight, next to a crumpled flyer from a Hollywood talent agency. Bold letters shout, "Young faces wanted, TV, film, music." Someone has circled a phone number in blue ink. A tightness grips his chest that has nothing to do with breathing. He lifts the flyer, smoothing the wrinkles with his palm. Lisa's handwriting is in the corner, small but excited. Maybe. The world has already found her. For a moment he stands there, flyer in one hand, report card in the other. One piece of paper talks about grades and attendance. The other whispers about cameras and red carpets. Which path will she feel pulled toward? What scares a parent more? The dangers of the world outside, or the possibility that their child might willingly walk into the same fire they barely escaped? A soft sound leaks from behind a closed bedroom door at the end of the hall. Music. Cassette tape hiss. A young girl's voice singing along with the radio. Elvis feels his throat tighten and his heart swell at the same time. He sets the papers back down, arranging them side by side as if lining up two futures. For years, he has dodged this question in his own mind. Let her be a kid, he told himself. Let her figure it out later. But later is standing right in front of him now, in the shape of a flyer and a report card and the sound of his daughter humming. He takes a step toward the door. The hallway seems longer than usual, like the distance between who he has been and who he wants her to be. The photographs on the walls watch him pass, each frozen version of Lisa reminding him that every year she moves closer to choosing her own life. What if she believes that being Elvis Presley's daughter means she has to stand where he stands, no matter what it costs her? He reaches the end of the hallway. The door is a few inches away now. From inside, he hears pages turning, a pencil scratching, the click of a cassette being flipped. Elvis lifts his hand. For the first time in years, the man who faced screaming arenas without fear feels his fingers shake. He hesitates, every worry and quiet hope catching up to him in the silence. Then he closes his hand into a loose fist and raises it toward the wood. His knuckles hover inches from the door. He is one knock away from a conversation that could change everything. Lisa Marie sprawls on the floor of her room, surrounded by cassette tapes, magazine clippings, and a notebook filled with scribbles. Posters of pop stars and stage lights cover the walls, blending with her drawings of herself singing on bright stages. The faint hum of a fan mixes with the soft hiss of a tape playing in the corner. She's alone, or at least she thought she was, until Elvis clears his throat at the door. He sits on the edge of her bed, trying to sound casual. "Hey, baby," he says, voice low, almost playful. "How's school? Friends?" His tone is light, but there's tension under the words, a weight she can't yet place. Lisa shrugs, not looking up. "Fine. Just busy." She hums along with the cassette, pretending she hasn't noticed him. Elvis leans slightly forward, glancing at the crumpled Hollywood flyer on the floor. He picks it up gently, smoothing it. "This," he says, pointing, "isn't just paper." "What are you thinking, really?" He pauses. "What do you want to do when you grow up?" At first, the conversation feels playful. They joke about piano lessons, about pony rides, about the time she snuck into the kitchen to make cookies while he was asleep. She giggles at an old memory. He smiles, letting her momentarily forget the world outside her room. But when he asks about the flyer, about the headlines, about the bright lights of Hollywood and music, her posture stiffens. She shrugs, tucking her legs closer. The air shifts. The distance between Daddy and Elvis Presley, the superstar, begins to show. Elvis studies her carefully. The laughter fades from her eyes, replaced by a hint of defiance. Soft, unsure, but there. He wants her to dream, yes, but not like this. He wants her safe. He wants her free. He wants her to see herself, not just the reflection of his fame. And in that moment, he realizes the delicate line he must walk. To guide without controlling, to protect without suffocating. Have you ever tried to protect someone from a world that already has its hooks in them? To warn them without scaring them away? That is the burden Elvis carries tonight. He exhales softly. The room is quiet except for the faint cassette hiss. He leans forward, voice barely above a whisper, and asks the question that has haunted him for weeks. "Baby, what do you really want your life to look like?" Lisa looks up at him. Her pencil stops scratching. Her eyes meet his. There is honesty in her glance, a reflection of curiosity and fear intertwined. The hallway outside is silent. The house seems to hold its breath. Even the photographs on the walls, her in pigtails, her first recital, her birthday candles, seem to lean closer, as if awaiting her answer. Elvis feels a pang of anxiety. This answer, small, casual, even defiant, could change everything. She might follow his path or choose her own. Either choice carries stakes he has never faced on stage. Fame, family, and freedom all converge in her simple words. The moment stretches. Her pencil taps. Her lips press together. And then, after a breath that seems to last forever, she begins to speak. Lisa hesitates, pencil hovering over her notebook. She looks at her father, his eyes soft but searching, and decides on the safe answer. "Maybe singing, maybe acting," she murmurs. "Maybe I could be famous like you, Daddy." Her words float in the quiet room. She expects a smile, maybe a laugh, an encouraging nod. Elvis forces a smile, but it doesn't reach his eyes. He remembers his own youth, the weight of the spotlight pressing against his chest, the nights filled with applause but empty behind closed doors. He wonders if she knows what it really costs. He asks about college, about living somewhere quiet one day, away from the glare. He wants to see her safe, not shaped by fame she hasn't even earned yet. Lisa laughs lightly. "How can I ever be normal?" she says, tossing the flyer back onto the floor. She gestures toward the small collection of magazines, tapes, and scribbled notes. "Crowds will always be part of me, won't they?" Her voice carries a teenage certainty, a mix of innocence and ambition. To her, it's a joke. To him, it feels like a life sentence. Fame has already reached her, uninvited, and she is leaning toward it willingly. Elvis takes a slow breath, forcing himself to listen. He knows she is speaking her truth, not hers shaped by expectation. Her eyes sparkle with excitement, a glimpse of the girl she is becoming. Yet he sees the shadow of the world that has already begun to touch her. He remembers the hotel rooms, the tours, the endless travel, the nights he spent trying to protect her from his own life while losing himself. His voice softens. He leans forward slightly. "What if I don't want you to follow my path?" he asks. Short, simple, direct. The words hang in the air, heavier than any stage spotlight. She freezes for a moment, uncertainty creeping across her face. She's never heard him speak like this. Not playful, not singing, not joking. Just serious. Just father to daughter. A man who has lived fame, heartbreak, and solitude all at once. asking the girl he loves what she truly wants. What would you do if someone you trusted most warned you about a path you were eager to take? Would you follow your heart or heed the wisdom of experience? How do you balance the excitement of dreams with the caution of knowing the cost? Lisa swallows, looking at the floor, then meets his gaze again. She doesn't back down. She speaks carefully, aware of the seriousness in his tone, the weight of the question that has been waiting in the hallway, on the report card, in the flyer for months. Every syllable carries both hope and defiance. She is honest, not rebellious, but clear. She wants the lights, the cameras, the chance to stand on stages, to be seen, to matter to people beyond the walls of Graceland. Elvis listens, heart tightening. The silence after her answer stretches, the kind of silence that settles like dust in an empty room. Every photo on the wall seems to hold its breath. The quiet is filled with what could be. The life she will live, the struggles he cannot protect her from, the lessons she will learn the hard way. Fame, fortune, love, disappointment, all waiting beyond this doorway, beyond this conversation. And in that room, father and daughter face a truth that neither can escape. Some paths cannot be guided, only witnessed. The room changes the instant Elvis asks the question. His voice loses its playful rhythm, shedding the laughter he had used to fill so many empty spaces. The shadows of the lamp stretch across the walls, falling over magazine clippings, scribbled notes, and cassette tapes, turning them into silent witnesses. Lisa's eyes flicker with uncertainty, her hands fidgeting with a pen, unaware that her father's heart is tightening with every heartbeat. Elvis leans back on the edge of her bed, his shoulders sagging slightly, the weight of decades pressing against him in this one, quiet moment. He begins to tell her stories she has never heard. Nights in lonely hotel rooms, applause echoing empty in cavernous arenas, and the isolation that came with being the man everyone adored. He shares what the world never sees. The exhaustion, the pills offered as fixes, the loneliness hiding behind rhinestones and lights. Lisa listens, confused. The world she knows seems bright, glamorous, and untouchable. She has seen the crowds cheer, the cameras flash, the magazines run their headlines. She doesn't yet understand that behind every cheer is a price paid in silence, in empty rooms, in sacrifices. She hasn't lived yet. She leans back, letting the stories wash over her, half in awe, half in curiosity, sensing the heaviness in her father's voice. Elvis's gaze softens but hardens at the edges. He asks again, quieter this time, "Is that really what you want?" The room holds its breath. The question lands not as a reprimand, but as a plea. He doesn't want to crush her dreams. He wants to protect her from the consequences he knows too well. The world's spotlight is brighter and colder than she imagines. Fame can illuminate, but it can also scorch. Her lips part. She meets his eyes, unwavering. The certainty in her expression strikes him harder than any crowd could. She does not want a quiet life in the shadows. She wants the stages. She wants to be seen. She wants to matter. And in that answer, she is honest. Not rebellious, not cruel, just herself. The dream he has spent years carrying alone now reaches out to touch her. How do you tell someone you love that the dream they want is actually the nightmare you lived? How do you balance protecting them from pain while letting them choose their own path? For Elvis, the question feels heavier than any spotlight, more piercing than any crowd's roar. He exhales slowly, closing his eyes for a brief second. His mind flashes back to the first time she sang on stage at age 5, the proud gleam in his eyes, the tiny hand he held, guiding hers. He knows that even if he tries to shield her, some lessons must be learned firsthand. Some paths must be walked, even if they echo the mistakes of the past. Elvis opens his eyes. His heart aches, knowing her choice is not a fleeting phase. He's seeing the reality of who she is becoming. The daughter he has raised, full of ambition, brilliance, and an innocence unaware of the world's cruelty. The father in him wants to scream, to shelter, to hold her close. But the man who has performed for thousands knows he cannot control everything. The hallway outside her room remains still. Only the soft hum of the fan and distant traffic remind them of the world waiting beyond these walls. In this room, only one truth exists. She has made her choice. Elvis leans forward slightly, voice barely above a whisper, carrying all the weight of his experience and love. Baby, you already matter. Lisa doesn't mean to hurt him. She isn't trying to rebel or shock. She simply speaks what she believes, what has been growing inside her for years, quietly, like a river under ice. I don't want a quiet life in the shadows, she says. I want stages, travel, cameras. I want to matter to people the way you do. The words flow naturally from her, soft but resolute, like the inevitable tide of someone finding her voice. Elvis feels his chest tighten. He forces a smile, but it doesn't reach his eyes. Every syllable carries the echo of a world he knows too well, bright lights that burn, applause that fades, expectations that crush. He remembers his own youth, the isolation he felt even in the largest arenas, and the nights he would lie awake, wondering if anyone could ever truly see him beyond the image. And now, he hears the same desire in the child he loves most. Then comes the sentence that strikes him like a punch he cannot block. If I end up just normal, I'll feel like I wasted being your daughter. For Lisa, it's a clumsy attempt to express love, a misguided measure of pride. For Elvis, it lands with crushing force. The reality he has feared, the thought that his daughter might tie her worth to the same fame that both defined and haunted him, has arrived, spoken plainly, as if to test him. His heart aches not because she wants success, but because she sees it as the only proof of love, including his. He swallows, his throat tight. He wants to protect her, to shield her from what he knows, but he also realizes she is choosing her own path. The man who once commanded millions with a gesture now feels powerless in the face of her words. Fame, applause, and neon lights have become an invisible weight, and he knows she is ready to carry it. The room is silent except for the soft hum of the fan and the distant echo of a cassette tape. Every photograph on the wall, the child he held in his arms, the little hands he guided, seems to watch, holding its breath. He wants to tell her everything, to explain the cost of the world she's entering, but he also wants her to speak, to choose, to find herself. And so, he does the hardest thing a father can do: he listens. What do you do when someone you love confuses being loved with being seen? How do you show them that value isn't measured in applause, accolades, or public attention, but in the quiet truths you carry for them alone? Elvis bends slightly, voice breaking, and whispers, "Baby, you already matter." Lisa doesn't understand why his eyes are wet. She thinks he's proud, but the tears are his own grief, fear, and love tangled into one. He's mourning the world she will face, the temptations and expectations she cannot yet see. And yet, he also feels a flicker of hope. She has her own mind, her own voice, and he will respect that. He will love her enough to let her choose, even if it hurts. The hallway outside remains quiet. Only the distant traffic hums softly, like the heartbeat of the world. Inside, a father and daughter sit on the edge of a small bed, each carrying truths too big to fit into words. And though the moment is painful, it is honest, raw, and unforgettable. Instead of shutting the conversation down or demanding obedience, Elvis does something neither of them expected. He softens. The tension in the room loosens just a little, like a weight shifting from his shoulders onto the floor. He leans back slightly, letting the silence stretch between them, and then speaks, voice quiet but firm. "I'll never forbid you from chasing anything, music, acting, whatever calls you," he says. There's no anger, no pleading. Just a father trying to guide without controlling, trying to protect without stifling. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small velvet box, worn at the edges, its color deep against the soft glow of the lamp. He opens it carefully. Inside rests a simple gold pendant, engraved with her name. Lisa. Not flashy, not ostentatious, just hers. He holds it out to her. "This is who you are," he says softly. "No matter what stages you stand on, this reminds you of yourself, your heart, your choices, not what the world demands." The gesture surprises her. A father who has lived his life under neon lights and screaming crowds is giving her a quiet, unshakable anchor, a tangible reminder that she exists beyond fame, that she is loved for herself, not the reflection of him she carries in the world's eyes. The mic in his life, the endless tours, the applause had been a chain. He doesn't want hers to be. Lisa reaches for the pendant, her fingers brushing against the smooth metal. The room feels smaller now, more intimate, as if the walls themselves are leaning in to witness a fragile exchange of trust. Her eyes meet his, and in that look, she sees not the superstar but the father who has always feared the world might take her too soon, who has carried his own mistakes quietly, hoping to shield her. Can you guide someone toward their dream without letting them fall into your old mistakes? Can love both protect and let go? Elvis exhales slowly. He hopes she understands. Not just the words, but the lesson behind them, the freedom to follow her path, tempered by wisdom. Promise me, he says, that you'll never let applause define who you are. She nods, eyes wide, the pendant resting in her hands like a fragile compass pointing toward both her dreams and her father's love. He smiles faintly, the first real relief touching his tired expression. He knows he can't control her path, but he can give her the tools to walk it with integrity. The moment stretches. No one speaks for a long heartbeat. Then he leans back, quietly proud and quietly terrified, aware that letting her go in spirit may be the hardest thing he's ever done. Years later, that pendant will mean more than she can explain. A small gold circle carrying the weight of trust, love, and freedom. A reminder that even in the shadows of fame, she has a place where she is always safe, always valued. Years after Elvis is gone, Lisa looks back on that conversation differently. The tabloids, the criticisms, the weight of her father's name, they all threaten to overshadow her. But every time she touches the gold pendant around her neck, she remembers the upstairs hallway at Graceland, the velvet box in her hands, and the quiet seriousness in his voice. That night wasn't about fame or stages. It was about understanding, trust, and love. Standing backstage at her own small shows or sitting alone in hotel rooms, she feels the echoes of that moment. She recalls his stories of lonely hotel rooms, the applause that never reached the heart, and the struggles he carried silently. She remembers his plea, that she would never let applause define who she is. And she realizes his heartbreak wasn't anger. It was fear. Fear she might lose herself in the same machine that almost swallowed him whole. Touching the pendant, Lisa feels both reassurance and responsibility. She knows the path ahead will have challenges, bright lights, and voices that judge. But she also carries a compass built from her father's love and wisdom. She understands that even when she chooses her own dreams, the guidance he offered shapes her steps. A biographer later writes that those who knew her say, she never chased fame blindly. She'd seen the cost up close. And in her quiet moments, Lisa often thinks about the man who sat at the edge of her bed, heart aching, asking the question that could have broken or guided her. What fears and hopes do you carry when making decisions that will shape your life? How do the lessons of those who walked before you quietly steer your path? The story isn't about Elvis stopping Lisa from dreaming. It's about a father terrified that his child might inherit not just his spotlight, but his loneliness. His heartbreak that night wasn't disappointment in her answer. It was grief for the pieces of himself she might one day carry. The weight of fame, the cost of applause, the isolation behind every curtain. It was a legacy he knew too well. In the end, that conversation becomes a quiet compass Lisa carries for the rest of her life. It guides her through auditions, tours, interviews, and late nights in empty hotel rooms. She knows now that her worth isn't measured in applause, cameras, or magazine covers. It's measured in the small truths her father entrusted to her, the lessons whispered in a room no one else saw, in a moment no one else remembers. Priscilla watches, knowing her presence mattered too. She had witnessed the fragile intersection of love and fear, of guidance and freedom. And in that hallway at Graceland, one simple question had done what words alone often cannot. It reshaped a life, bridged generations, and allowed a father's heart to speak, even when his own voice quivered. What future would you choose if you could see the full cost of someone else's dream? How would you measure love, by what you give or by what they choose to become? The upstairs hallway remains quiet. The photos on the wall, frozen in time, seem to breathe with memory. One simple question changed everything. If the story moved you, share it with someone who carries unanswered questions from their past. Sometimes a single conversation, spoken or remembered, can shape a life far more than we realize. Tell us below, what question or advice from a parent has shaped who you are today?